All these serials I have reviewed while you have done nothing but observe. True, I am guilty of nitpicking, just as you are guilty of failing to use your great powers to comment about it on Facebook.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to the 43rd presentation of an Unearthly podcast featuring The War Games by Malcolm Hulk and Terrence Dix, and recording on January 26, 2014. This podcast is dedicated to the memory of Justin Carmichael. I am the Lord Chief, and with me are the Lord,
Hello.
and the Chief.
Always a pleasure.
In a bit more serious of a tone, Matt would like to say a few words.
Yes. As previously mentioned, recently we have come under a loss. Technically, being that we do this podcast, and technically we do reviews of Doctor Who, that means we're all kind of reviewers in our own right. Justin Carmichael, otherwise known as Wario to most of us online, died Thursday. Apparently he had committed suicide in his own home. His wife was apparently present when it happened. And she also left a letter, which I will read in quick. And I quote from her. "It is with a very sad heart I must confirm that my husband, Justin Carmichael, sometimes known as Wario, died on Thursday, January 23rd. I also have a confirmation that he shot himself, but he was not alone. He locked himself in a bathroom and I was on the other side of the door talking with him. He knew I loved him. He knew all of you loved him. You all made him so happy every time he was recognized from his videos. It made him giddy with joy." So, I'll admit that I don't know him as well as other people, and even here's a picture of Wario with Noah Antweiler, otherwise known as Spoonie, in the middle, and Angry Joe on the opposite side. I did, however, know a few good things about Wario. He did a show that most people know him from, which was You Can Play This, where he taught people how to find and play foreign-made games that you normally couldn't find or get in the American market. One of which, the episodes I liked the most, was one where he did a Ultraman PlayStation portable game, because I am a huge Ultraman fan, as well as a Toku fan in general. Justin was also a huge Kamen Rider fan. He had stuff all over his walls. He even made his own parody Kamen Rider character, which he was working on doing a mini-series, I hear, as well as future plans for a movie. Also to this, the one time I got to really get in contact with him was while he was doing a live stream, and he was talking Doctor Who. So he was very obviously a Doctor Who fan. He was also talking with Nash, one of the other people that he kept in regular contact with, and also a big Doctor Who fan. He was, I believe at the time, the name of the Doctor had just come out, and he was extremely worried that the name was actually given away. He's just like, okay guys, with no spoilers, do they say his name? And we very carefully found the right words to tell him, no, we don't hear the name. We don't hear the name at all in the episode. He's like, okay, I'll give it that much then. So, we lost a very good reviewer. Everyone knew him as the really friendly guy, so we lost a really nice guy, and we also lost a fellow Doctor Who fan.
I never interacted with him myself, but I have quite a few friends who met him, were friends with him, mostly through conventions, some, in live streams and other things, as Matt described. And I've never heard anyone have anything negative to say about him or him have anything negative to say about anyone else. Great guy and really enthusiastic about everything he was doing.
Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, the last couple of posts he even had on Twitter were a repost of a picture from Japan, and then before that was him talking about how he was almost done with the next video and it was going to be really awesome, and he hoped that we all would enjoy it when it came out. That is literally the mindset the day of this happening.
Which makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, we don't know what on earth happened.
Right, and
something
I mean,
just snapped that night.
Speaking as somebody who, at their low point in their life, seriously considered playing in traffic and rush hour, you felt that way because you had no hope. You thought nobody cared, and you basically felt absolutely low, and none of the indicators for this is of somebody that was of that mentality.
Oh, far from it. As a matter of fact, he seems to be the guy that everyone could rely on not to have that kind of mentality. He was always there for anybody who ever did anything.
Or at least not to show it.
Yeah, at least
major
he
thing is
did
a lot of
his
people
darn best
are
to
very
never show it
quiet
if
with
it
it,
ever was that way.
And that all said, to anyone listening, if you would be otherwise inclined to, please do not go to his wife or on Twitter and start asking a bunch of questions. News will, if there's more to be revealed, it will be.
Yes.
Nobody wants people to come up to them and start asking, well, why'd your husband kill himself? Nobody needs to hear that ever.
No, not right
especially not right after it happens. So please, just everyone wants, a lot of people want to hear more. Just please, give that level of respect, and let the family mourn and let his friends mourn and everything else.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, from the little experience I had with him, he was a really nice guy. I was talking with him, and he completely got it.
Okay. I really don't want to dwell on this the entire episode.
Right.
So.
Mm-hmm.
And on to our Doctor Who news. Unfortunately, we do have another death to report. Although this one was him at the age of 85, so a little bit more expected.
Yeah,
at 85, you can pretty much say you had a good run.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, you're not like George Burns, who I think was over 100, but still, I mean, anything above 75 is a good run.
Right. In this case, it's Jerome Willis, the actor who played Stevens in The Green Death, which was Joe Grant's final serial.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Third Doctor era. What did he die of?
I don't think I. Let me see. See if the link I had shows that.
I'm checking it right now. I'm not seeing anything that says what he died of.
I'm just kind of curious because I have this kind of running.
You're expecting it to be cancer.
Yeah,
I am kind of.
Because expect cancer by now. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a thing that a lot of Doctor Who actors have died from cancer. I've mentioned this a few times on the cast before. I suspect a lot of those studios weren't exactly in the best of condition.
Died peacefully on 11th of January 2014.
Yeah, the obituary.
Loved and missed my wife.
It doesn't say.
Yeah, it does not say.
He might have just died of old age complications, or he might have died of cancer. It's very hard to tell.
As far as they could tell, he wasn't sick from anything. They said he died peacefully, so it must have just kind of been
peacefully doesn't mean wasn't sick of anything. A
lot of things, yeah. It could just mean that he was dying in a hospital bed and that he wasn't,
in pain.
Yeah, exactly.
You would think they would
say that,
though.
He died quietly. He didn't die violently in a way such as a murder or an accident.
The family might have asked for them not to say what it was caused of.
Sure.
Well.
Yeah.
So another one that
he wasn't a big enough name that it was, where you have the Wikipedia article that says that such and such had been battling X cancer for that. or had an issue with something sclerosis or something. Nothing like that.
Oh, I don't know. He apparently had over 100 screen credits, so he apparently had a pretty big career.
But he's not. Just because you have that many screen credits does not mean you're a big name.
Right.
It means you're probably a good bit or character actor.
Yeah. Like, for example, what we know him from was a character that appeared in one serial in the 70s.
Yeah, he did Doctor Who, he did the Avengers.
Yeah. So if he had 100 of those, he might be respected and known in his industry, but he wouldn't be a big enough name for everyone to want to know what happened.
He had apparently one leading role in the ITV drama series The Sandbaggers, which was 1978 to 1980. And he appeared in several other things, such as Z-Cars, Within These Walls, Doctor Who. He played a guard commander in the Caesars.
Adamant lives.
So he's done a lot of things, but he might have been playing, villain of the week.
Right.
Or, side minor characters, but it's not one of those things where you get your name up in lights.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that really get the big, long Wikipedia articles.
Right.
So we don't know anything about his health, really. I wouldn't put money away from it being cancer, but we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Especially at 85, it could have been a dozen factors at once that all contributed by that point, which essentially means old age.
Yep. But let's turn away from the sad news of death and move on to birthdays.
Which is why we try to get past it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we had to make up for having two of those announcements. We have two birthdays of doctors within the past week.
Mm-hmm. Kicking off with Teeth and Curls.
Yes, Tom Baker turned 80. Yep.
He is the oldest living doctor, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He is also the oldest doctor in succession number. 1, 2, and 3 are gone, but 4 remains and seems to be doing okay. He has given a couple of interviews, and the BBC's Doctor Who website has put in a bunch of articles about interviews with him and stuff about his particular reign as the Doctor. So that's all on bbc.co.uk/Doctor Who.
So he's probably enjoying himself to death right now.
Oh God, he always enjoys himself.
That and I mean he was just recently in the 50th anniversary special on the big screen, no less. It's a if nothing else, that's a great 80th birthday present.
He's mentioned in one of the interviews, I watched it just prior to the podcast, that in the English village where he lives, he goes around and pretty much everyone in the village still calls him Doctor, and he just gets a big thrill out of that. He said he was like walking. He was like walking to get something, and there was somebody up on a construction pole looked down and went, "Hello, Doctor."
Good morning.
Speaking of Tom Baker, I don't have a source for this, and if any of you have actually seen news about it, you can feel free to stop me, but hearsay is that at some point recently, so I'm assuming after, while Destiny of the Doctor was being recorded, supposedly Tom Baker and Lalla Ward finally agreed to do a series of audios together that have now been recorded. This is hearsay as far as I'm aware.
I thought I had heard that they had actually done that, or were working on that.
Okay.
Cool. I would love to have them working together again. That would be great. I don't have
official knowledge of that. It would be nice if they could put aside
old grievances.
If they have grievances,
we
really don't know.
If they really had grievances, it's more of a professional. We're too busy for this right now. As far as I was aware.
At least that's what they say. I can't really tell you. I was not privy to their marriage.
Right.
But I'm kind of hoping they can put it aside to work for a couple of serials. It'd be interesting to see if that chemistry is still there.
Yes. I would love to see it if that chemistry is still there, if they can still do it again. That would be, wonderful.
I may have just found a source. Let me look at this and I'll link you to it if it looks like it. If
it looks legit.
Yeah. Well, it's legit. It's from BigFinish.com. I just want to make sure it's about what it looks like it's about. Okay. It looks like it, but I'm not finished reading it. due to it. Tom Baker, Lala Ward, and John Leeson return for new stories. Now, let me see if it says they'll be together or not.
You would think so if they're bringing together the Doctor, Romana, and K9.
Yeah.
You'd think so, yes.
For a run of new full cast audio productions for Big Finish, so I would say that's a yes.
I just hope Romana's a bit more responsible with K9 this time. I still can't get over go fetch a beach ball in the water.
Well, you would think the Doctor would have equipped K9 with a flotation device. Seriously.
These will be adaptations of the Missing Adventures novels that Gareth wrote for these characters.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So apparently this news is from November, but this is new to us at least.
Yeah, it's news to us. This is the first time we heard about it, so awesome. Sweet.
That's cool. That's honestly cool.
And these will be released in 2016, so I don't know if they're actually recorded yet or not, but they're
under contract. They're probably going to start recording later this year, maybe. Big Finish is, I think, a little bit behind their schedule at the moment.
They had so much stuff.
I think after all the 50th anniversary stuff that they were doing for themselves and got permission to do from the BBC. Yeah. In addition to all their regular runs, they kind of took January to basically go, okay, we're done now. Let's take 5, get a soda, and then we'll come back next month and deal with this.
They did at least
suck it up.
They did at least 12, if not more, extra releases just for Doctor Who in 2013.
Yeah.
Plus, I think I'm not sure. I don't think Dark Eyes is part of any regular run, so that's always an extra thing.
They're doing a series of audios based on some of the Pathfinder role-playing game adventure modules.
Oh, nice.
The first one was due out this month, but they pushed it back to next month. And that's where I'm getting the idea that kind of their audio crew is just kind of taking a month to recoup, put their feet up for a little bit and go, well done, guys.
Well done, we survived it. And people, for the most part, really liked our stuff. Now...
take a part in the middle of winter to say, well done.
You lay your head on the desk for a few minutes. There you go.
Okay.
But yeah, that's some awesome news.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, and our next announcement then is the next day, our newest Doctor, and I don't mean Peter Capaldi, because the newest announced Doctor, John Hurt, turned 74, which I think makes him the second oldest living Doctor. I'm not sure how old Colin is.
It might. I know it'd be between him and Colin.
Yeah.
Because we know Davidson's a bit younger. But,
Davidson's
also a grandfather. Grandfather, and of course the father-in-law of Tennant.
I think Davidson's about as old now as Colin was as the Doctor.
No, he's older.
Okay, Colin is 7, so he's 4 years younger than John Hurt.
Yeah.
It looks like the next then would be McCoy and then Davison.
Yep. And then you get into the newer guys. Mm-hmm. McGann's starting to get up there, but...
Yeah, McGann looks like he turned 60 in August.
Really? He looks much younger for his age.
Yeah, he's aging well.
Peter Davison's the baby. He's 12 years younger than McCoy.
Yeah. He's 62.
Yeah, Paul's really well kept for his age.
Yeah, because you remember Davison was the young Doctor before we got Smith.
Oh no, I'm sorry. McCoy turned 70, not 60, because he's only two months younger than Colin. I screwed up years in my head. I'm thinking 2003 was recent. It wasn't.
Yep, Davidson's the young boy, but he's the one that still has the in with the current crew.
Wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder. Might be having something to do with that woman that helped produce RTD. That special not too long ago. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Although who knows?
Although I would say McCoy has the bigger career at this point.
Right.
Frickin' Lord of the Rings.
I was in the Hobbit, don't you know?
if the 5-ish is to be believed, McGann is constantly busy.
Yeah, McGann is also constantly busy too.
Yeah, but he's usually busy in stage, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I can kind of see. I mean, his theatrical career, like his film career, the biggest highlights of it that most people remember are Alien 3
and Doctor Who.
Fox's Doctor Who. So I can kind of see why you might stay away from film for a while.
There was other stuff he did. It's just
those are the ones people talk about.
Yeah, there was other stuff
sure
he did.
Better things.
There's other stuff they talk about in England.
Gotcha.
Like he was, his original breakthrough role was in a series called "Give Us a Break," which was a long-running. Well, it was created by a guy that created the long-running ITC series, The Bill. So that was his big one. And then he was also in the serial The Monocled Mutineer. So both of those were kind of big for him, and that was kind of where he got his film career that took off, and then died.
Died tragically at the hands of U.S. producers.
He's done other more. He also was in Queen of the Damned, by the way.
That's right. That's right.
He played David Talbot. He's also done a lot of voiceover work for documentaries and commercials. So he's kind of the British in a world guy.
In a world.
Our next
in a world where...
Our next bit of news continues the trend of having good news, and that is the National Television Awards results.
Yes.
As far as I'm aware, there are 3 that most Doctor Who fans will be interested in. Correct me if there's any that I skip over that you think people want to hear.
Let's see here. Serial drama, documentary.
For Best Drama Performance, Matt Smith in his role as the 11th Doctor.
Drama, Doctor Who.
For Best Drama, Doctor Who. And for those of you who watch Sherlock, Benedict Cumberbatch won for Best TV Detective.
Yeah, he was up against Tennant. Damn you.
Yeah, I haven't watched.
I haven't watched either of them, so yeah.
I don't care. I still prefer Tennant over Benedict Cumberbatch.
I would, but I just don't feel comfortable voting for a show I haven't seen, even though I'm a fan of the actor.
Yeah, well, for me, it was a vote against Benedict Cumberbatch because I really don't like him. I've seen him. I've seen him tolerable in like 2 things, but he was tolerable.
Randy, Smog.
I haven't seen.
That was one of the tolerable ones. Oh, I swear.
Only tolerable? What?
Yes, he could have. He could have. There could have been a better voice for Smog. Something more booming. If they hadn't had Christopher Lee as what's his face, Saruman, you could have seen him as Smog. And
dude, they could have. Awesome. They could have still done it. Literally, the guy who played Gimli was Treebeard.
Yeah, it would have been interesting. Yeah, the problem is that Christopher Lee's voice is one of those that's way too recognizable.
Yeah,
true, to a certain degree. Yeah.
Ian McKellen would be another option if he wasn't already in it.
Again, not really a thing, but I don't know. His voice has been weakening of the last few years. I've noticed his Gandalf performances in The Hobbit. His voice seems to be a little more wavery than it was before. And I don't know if that's deliberate on them or not.
As for Cumberbatch, I haven't really, I like him all right in Sherlock. I think he does the job the way it's the way that the writers and directors intend it. Same with Khan. I feel like
I tolerated him as...
See, that's the thing. It might have been that it could have been better, but I think he did what the director and the writer wanted versus being bad.
Maybe, but he was. It's still compared to it's very pale performance compared to Ricardo Montalban.
There we go.
I bury you alive.
Definitely didn't have that quite same type of magic.
I'm sorry. Khan is a role that you really have to get into, and he didn't really seem to get into it.
Buried alive.
Even if you look at the original 60-some serial, Maybe it's just the sheer charisma that Ricardo Montalban had. I mean, after all, this was the host of Paradise Island.
Yes.
The plane, boss, the plane. But still, I mean, he was a very charismatic figure, and Khan was billed as a very charismatic figure. And Benedict Cumberbatch, while not as bad as William Hurt, just is not that charismatic to me.
Right, I get you.
It's I don't know if you've ever heard me bitch about the Sci-Fi Channel version of Dune. They cast William Hurt as Duke Leto Atreides, a person who is written as this charismatic leader figure, and William Hurt is like the acting equivalent of Wonder Bread. He is absolutely bland.
That's my entire problem with that entire miniseries, is that all the actors they picked were really bland.
Some of them were okay. None of them were of the level of the David Lynch level of acting, which most of those casts were pretty epic.
Yes.
The guy that did Paul, I thought was okay.
It was also his first, his big first movie.
The still suit costume was okay for the miniseries. The rest of the costuming was like, really, what the hell, guys? But that's a completely tangent. I'm tangenting on the news now.
We've been tangenting on the news pretty much for every article almost. So
okay.
Our next bit is that Titans Comics has been selected to take over for Doctor Who Comics. Many of you might have heard. We might have announced it here. I forget. But IDW's contract ran out this year, and I had heard for a while that Boom had been selected to replace them. Apparently, that was a false rumor, because
either that or that came out when they might have been in negotiation with Boom and it fell through at the last minute.
That's possible.
And somebody thought it was pretty much a signed deal, and some technicality came up.
Right.
So,
but apparently they're going to be doing...
I don't know, though. It's kind of like the Doctor Who comics have been passed around so much. I mean, they were Marvel back in the 70s and 80s, and I think 90s. And then they went to Big Finish, had a few. Then they went to IDW, and now they're going to Titan. And even before that, they were like on 2 or 3 different producers. So it's just like,
They're still not as bad as Star Trek, though. They've had Marvel and DC, and then they've also had
I've collected
IDW
some
and
from
a few
each.
Others. Yeah.
And also there were some really bad ones from each.
Yeah,
although it's almost not fair to count Marvel, because it seems like every single franchise that does get passed around has been through Marvel at least once.
Yeah, kind of. I suspect Marvel has a tendency of bidding low on such things, which is why they're appealing.
Or at the very least they did in the... at the very least they must have in the past.
Yeah, I think they traditionally did. I don't know if they do now. Of course, now Marvel's owned by Disney.
Yeah, now they pretty much do what they want.
Which is where Star Wars is going now. It's back to Disney, or Marvel, because Marvel's owned by Disney, and so is Star Wars.
That's one reason I kind of would have liked to see Doctor Who go to Dark Horse, because I've seen what Dark Horse can do, and once they don't have Star Wars, they have a lot of really talented people who will be looking for a new sci-fi franchise to work on.
But that brings us into the scary area of Doctor Who Buffy crossovers. Yeah, I've actually read a few of those.
Even more, it brings us into the area of Doctor Who Serenity crossovers.
I've read a few of those, too.
From what I'm getting out of this article, Titan Comics originally... Titan Comics is part of the Titan printing group, and one of the things they did previously was a Torchwood official magazine.
Nice.
Okay,
so they at least have some previous work done with Doctor Who.
If Doctor Who had gone to Dark Horse, River and River could have an adventure together.
I don't want to see that, Bill. I just don't want to see that. Period.
I think thousands of people on the internet would override you on that.
I'm sorry. No, it's anything with River Song I don't want to see.
No, I have to agree with Randy on this one. Actually, yeah, I don't want to see River Song ever again.
I think
I don't mind River Tam,
River
but
Tam would take her down a peg.
Either that, or they would start trying to out-Mary Sue each other, which could be very bad. Not that River Tam is a bad Mary Sue. I like her.
Yeah,
Right.
she's a decent Mary Sue. They at least built up to it.
Yeah, they at least built up to it properly. But River, it's like getting freaking William Shatner and Christopher Walken in the same room and watching them try to outpause each other.
River Tam is a min-max character. She's a character that someone was munchkinizing. Okay, I'll take the flaw of spontaneously bursting out into random things in order to gain this combat feat. I'll take this weakness in order to gain that. And that's how
and then as they level up, they get rid of all the flaws.
Yeah.
Kind of. But
and finally, by the time the movie hit, they had enough levels to go, yep, no more flaws. Punch,
kind of.
kick, it's all in the mind.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I kind of lost paying attention to the Doctor Who comics ages ago. I tried to get into the Doctor Who Star Trek crossover, and for some reason I just couldn't.
That's the one I really want to read.
I started the first issue, and it just was like...
Was it the writing, or the character interactions, or anything in particular?
It was the lack of exclamation on why. Kind of just bothered the hell out of me.
I think I saw Last Angry Geek actually do a review on that run, and he was kind of to it too.
You did it.
Yeah.
It
was the crossover that kind of killed IDW's Doctor Who franchise. I mean, you can do crossovers with Doctor Who if they're done well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But if they're not done well, they're not good.
Apparently the Cybermen outsmarted the Borg in some way, and some people are upset by that. I don't know the plot myself.
I'd rather the Cybermen be the leader in that particular duo.
That's kind of what they did, but it's I don't know. The plot was just kind of meh.
Because essentially the Borg should walk into the room with the Cybermen and look up at the Cybermen and go, "Daddy?"
Pretty much.
I'm sorry, I just got David Banks in my head as the cyber leader voice going, "Who's your daddy?
Who's your
Excellent."
daddy?
So wrong.
Who's your
so
daddy
wrong.
and what does he do?
It's just seeing the cyber leader making that spanking motion as he's doing it. It's just wrong. It's totally wrong. Okay,
On that note, our last piece of news is that a biography of Verity Lambert has been announced.
Verity.
Who many people will be most familiar with her from 2 months ago's An Adventure in Time and Space as one of the founders of Doctor Who.
She is the one that got Doctor Who off the ground. I doubt it would have been as successful without Verity pushing to get things done.
Bill, you double-linked the Titan one.
Yeah, can you actually get the Verity Lambert biography? I had it at one point, but I've lost it.
It was from the same site, though, so let's see. I should be able to get it fairly quickly.
Searching from posts today. Okay, there it is.
But no, it's
the weird thing about my computer is sometimes when I hit Control-C, nothing happens. I don't know if it's the C key.
Every very great once in a while, it'll happen to me too. It's just like, oh, come on. But usually it's like when I try doing something in Photoshop and try to copy and paste the image I want to alter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was very big. She was the first female drama producer at the BBC, so she was kind of a pioneer for women's rights.
Actually, she was probably the first female producer, period, wasn't she?
I don't know. There might have been one on this side of the pond. I don't know.
But yeah, we're talking Britain though.
Right.
Yeah, in Britain for sure.
In Britain for sure, yeah.
The name is Drama and Delight, The Life and Legacy of Verity Lambert, and it's being written by Richard Marson.
I mean,
there a date on here yet?
If you really look at the Adventure in Space and Time, you can really see that at that time there was really a glass ceiling in drama production for the BBC.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the one that smashed that glass ceiling. So, kind of a very big figure.
And the fact that they actually tried to put down her ideas so hard.
Yeah.
At some points, it's just like, oh.
Yeah,
you could tell they might not have a publication date until after it's written because it's being written
they probably won't have a publication date until they're actually finished writing because you never know, something might pop up.
You could really tell, at least, and you can't really tell if it's Gaddis writing or if this is really what happened, was that when she was saying it, a lot of the old guard was like, oh, that's a great idea, honey. Just, you keep thinking that, now go make me a sandwich. And, it's kind of that mentality that you don't see as much of anymore, at least, outside of, rednecks,
Yeah.
When professionals do have that mentality, they're at least smart enough to keep it from the public eye as much as they can. Because when they get called out on it, they really get called out on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, a few of them will, and they will get lambasted and ridiculed by the media for like 5 to 10 years.
Some of the books that this person has that Richard Marson has written were Blue Peter 50th anniversary, or not. I'm not sure if that's one title with a comma in the middle of it or several titles. The Blue Peter 50th anniversary one.
Jesus, Blue Peter's had a 50th?
And
God, that thing's gone on forever.
Yeah, they had, Blue Peter and Doctor Who are just about as old as each other, yeah.
They've had JNT, The Life and Scandalous Times of John Nathan Turner, which is another major Doctor Who thing that...
Oh, God, yeah, you talk about one of the first, I mean, I think he was one of the first openly gay producers.
Producers, yeah.
Probably because not long before that, wasn't it? I mean, I know when Doctor Who came out, it was illegal to be gay in Britain, at least openly.
I don't remember if he was out of the closet or not when he was producing.
I don't think he was. It was sometime after Doctor Who was done, I think.
Okay.
That he became very public about it, from what I recall, at least. But yeah, wow. Okay. So at least this guy has some experience under his belt on this too.
Yeah. So he's been researching Doctor Who and BBC for a bit.
Oh yeah.
And God, Nathan Turner was one of those my way or the highway kind of guys too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right even if I'm wrong.
Tom Baker knows about that.
Oh yeah.
Tom Baker could probably tell some stories.
Oh, he can. I can tell you. That was a case of two people that were very, very full of themselves, butting heads. And the thing is that Nathan Turner had the BBC behind him.
Yeah, that was the only thing that kept Baker at bay, probably.
The thing is, if that hadn't happened, Tom Baker might have still been the Doctor today.
Yeah, he might.
He might be fitter than he is.
I don't think he ever would have put the mic down, so to speak.
Put the scarf down.
Mm-hmm. At least, unless somebody else had come along with the same thing. Could you imagine Tom Baker being written by Russell T Davies? Or Stephen Moffat? That might have been the end of it right there.
Stephen Moffat, yeah.
Anyway.
I could definitely see Russell T.
Oh,
doing
God, now I'm picturing
Tom
Baker working with River Song. That description you had earlier of Shatner and who else trying to out that would be Tom Baker and River Song. Yeah, there we go. Well, I don't know if they'd quite be Shatner and Walken, but they would definitely be trying to outact each other if you had Tom Baker and River Song on screen together.
Can you? Yeah, it's like Shatner and Bruce Campbell in the same scene.
Actually, I don't know if River would have been the same way, because Moffat has mentioned that the reason he liked her pairing with Matt Smith was because they don't look like a couple. Their ages are very, very different and everything. So actually, no, because Tom is not exactly the same age he was in the '80s. So there's still
he does not look that young anymore.
Yeah, he would be the white-haired doctor by now.
Yeah.
He would look like the curator.
Right, exactly.
Except with a bigger scarf.
I don't know if
if
he had still been the doctor, if Tom Baker would have actually tried to hide his aging, if he would have gotten a big, brown-haired curly wig to wear all the time.
Do you think the scarf would have eaten him by this point?
What's that?
It was getting bigger throughout his run, wasn't it?
It would get bigger.
No,
it was
weaved to the same specifications every time. Because I think they had to make a new scarf for him every other season.
Wasn't the red scarf longer?
Nope.
No?
If anything, it was shorter.
Yeah.
Okay.
The red scarf was, if anything, shorter or just as long as any of the others.
Yeah. It's the thing is the scarf would get a bit of wear and tear on the set, so every other season they had to give the same lady this big thing of yarn and have her knit a whole new scarf.
Meanwhile, in the series, they would find a new way to trim off the fringe. I remember at one point they had a samurai-type warrior cut off the end of the scarf.
Yeah, it's those scarves took a beating.
We really can't stop tangenting on the news today, can we?
No, at least they're only little tangents for the most part.
Yeah, they're little tangents, and they're mostly Doctor Who related.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to that was the end of the news. So
yep. Well, now we're going to talk about the War Games.
Do we want to try and summarize the 10 episodes?
I can, but I'd like to actually side talk a moment on the actual when this was happening.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, it was 1969, and this was only the second time in the history of the show that the Doctor actually had to stand down. They had to stand down because Patrick Troughton had been worn ragged over the 3 seasons he'd had as the Doctor.
It was what?
Because
of the 50-week shooting schedule, wasn't it?
50-week shooting schedule, yes. And a couple of times Troughton had to call in sick, like he did during the invasion. I think he was gone for a week.
And some of that was double. He played opposite himself at least once.
Yeah, some of that was that, but he was just worn out by the shooting. And he had actually mentioned to the BBC that it would be a lot easier if they'd had instead of a serial schedule, a series schedule, essentially, where it was 13 episodes or whatever, and then 13 episodes of reruns or a different show, so they could actually have downtime.
Mm-hmm.
At times the BBC had said no.
Right. There's definitely a reason why he looks younger in season 10 than he did in season 6.
You mean he looks older in season 10?
No, I'm saying why he looks why he seems to be a younger person in the 3 Doctors than he did at the end of the run as the Doctor.
Yeah, he looks really. If you look at a lot of the episodes in this season, he looks really haggard. He's baggy-eyed, and it looks like he's not getting enough sleep.
And that's probably because he wasn't.
Correct. So he was basically at this point, it's like, I'm done. After I will finish the shooting serial, and I'm done. So
he was also,
the BBC
fairly active for an older Doctor as well.
Mm-hmm. So the BBC, of course, they had already had to replace Hartnell with Troughton, and now they had to do it again, and they weren't sure if they could pull it off again. It worked once, but it was really this serial that managed to, or this serial and the one after it, that managed to establish that, yes, it works. You can do it again. And after that, it basically became integral to the show. It wasn't. It you know, people were expecting it.
And this is another one where I don't want to go too much into it because I mentioned it last week, but this is one they still hadn't quite coined regeneration and what it was about yet. In here, they're essentially saying we're going to change your actor. Is, you know, that's not the words they use, but that's pretty much what they're saying in this serial, and what the Doctor is objecting to.
Yes, but you know, it's just, you know, it was one of these parts where this is one of those turning points where the show could have been derailed,
right?
And it wasn't. And so, you know, it's very good. And this is, you know, this was a 10-part story.
The longest story of the time not to be junked.
Well, that doesn't matter. It was the second largest story. Yeah, it didn't matter whether it was junked or not in 1969. It was the second largest story to ever have been aired.
Yeah.
I believe
it still is, unless you count Trial of the Time Lord as one 14-part serial, in which case it's the third, which is still an accomplishment in 50 years.
Yeah.
So this was like, for Troughton, this had to be like sprinting a marathon at the end of the run.
Pretty much. Especially since there was a lot of location shooting.
Yeah.
I was wondering that while I was watching it. I was sitting. I would look at something. I'm like, is that a matte painting or is that on location? And then a horse would ride off into the distance. I'm like, well, it's clearly not a painting.
Yeah, but I'm wondering how much of it was actually filmed in the same general region of England. So it's like, we're shooting here, we go a few miles over this way and shoot. I'm wondering how much of that was done. Okay, so reviewing it.
Starting with the shortened recap,
yeah,
of the story.
I will try to make this abrupt as possible. It's very hard because we are talking about a 10-part story.
Yeah, this is
3.5
hour airtime if you watch.
If I start going too long on one thing, feel free to say get on with it. In true Monty Python style.
Get on with it.
Exactly. So the series starts with the TARDIS appearing and the Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie walking out on what they think is Earth. And with a little bit of searching around, they find it to be World War I Earth. Pretty soon, they are picked up by an ambulance, which is in turn captured by the Germans, which is in turn captured by the Allies and brought to Allied Command, where they're immediately accused of being German spies, and the Doctor is sentenced to a firing squad. Shortly thereafter, we see the leader talk into a weird TV-like device. The Doctor is brought up in front of a firing squad, but before he could be shot, they're attacked by a German sniper, which causes the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe to basically make a break for it. Shortly thereafter, they're captured by the Germans. Well, they have to rescue Jamie first, then they get captured by the Germans, who pretty much act much the same way. Then they flee from them, and wind up crossing a mist into what looks to be America 19th century Civil War, where they're shot at. They turn around, they come back.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt a lot, but was that after the Doctor noticed the hidden technology that indicated that they weren't where they seemed to be?
Zoe noticed it. That picture while they were rescuing it, and related to the Doctor.
The Doctor was the only one who was able to see it until he made the...
No, all three of them could see it, Bill.
All three of them could see it, Bill. It was only the people that were processed that couldn't see it, because it was part of their hypnosis.
Because I thought Zoe and Jamie had to try harder to see it.
No,
that was Carstairs that had to try. Carstairs and the nurse.
Okay.
Yeah, the Doctor also picked up a couple of traveling companions for this little adventure. Right. A British World War I soldier by the name of Carstairs and a World War I nurse, Jenny something or other.
Yeah.
And they're They get traveling. They get... eventually, the Doctor figures out, of course, that they're that these mists are bridging different time zones. They go make a raid on the British capital to find a map, which they find several time zones and a big gap in the middle. So they all pile in the ambulance and try to head towards the gap. They get back as far as the Revolutionary War Zone, find themselves in a barn where they see this strange green box materialize with a very familiar sounding noise. The doors open and a whole bunch of soldiers get out. At this point, the Doctor, Jamie, the Doctor and Zoe get split up from Jamie and the girl, and they wind up. The Doctor and Zoe wind up going to the Central Command, while Jamie and the others wind up staying in the Revolutionary War Zone, where they wind up meeting the Resistance, people that aren't hypnotized into what's going on. The Doctor,
the hypnosis.
Yep, sneaks in. They find Carstairs, who had been captured, undergoing the hypnosis process, which makes them see basically what they're told to see. And earlier on in the serial, we had seen the commanders put on glasses or a monocle or some kind of eyewear and hypnotize people into believing anything they tell them. The Doctor manages to learn a little bit about the device, but they're soon seen out by apparently the head of the area, the war chief, who is revealed eventually to be one of the Doctor's own race. A chase ensues through the capital, and eventually the Zoe is captured and interrogated by the security chief, who does not like the war chief and doesn't trust him. And we eventually begin to see a bit of a power play between the war chief and the security chief, and both of them are at edge because their boss, the warlord, is coming to visit. I should mention at this point that like 90% of the aliens all seem to wear glasses. Just saying.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention a couple of them have some really weird sounding voices.
Yeah.
The security chief in particular almost sounds like an early Cyberman.
Or almost Dalek.
Or almost a little bit like a Dalek, yes.
And I can't tell if that was them trying to make him sound more militaristic or what. But,
yeah.
Regardless. We get to see this power play going. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Zoe have managed to escape and made it back to the Resistance, where they start getting the idea to start merging all these different Resistance bands together to launch an assault on the central base. To this point, they capture the chateau where the Allied command is, and after a little bit of jiggery-pokery and scary moments, manage to isolate it completely from the rest of the zone, making it its own time zone. Unfortunately, this doesn't stop the square devices, which we hear are called Sidrats, to materialize in there and wind up capturing the Doctor and getting their mind processing device back, which the Doctor had stolen. The war chief then makes an ultimatum to the Doctor to join him, or he would basically destroy. He would basically die. The Doctor is, of course, originally opposed to this, but changes his tune when he hears that they're planning to basically drop a neutron bomb onto the zone and kill everybody if they continue to resist. He manages to lure the leaders of the Resistance to the capital, where he acts like he's betraying them. They get captured, and he, quote, processes them, unquote. But soon, the security chief manages to catch footage of, or audio of the Doctor and the war chief talking, where the war chief basically talks about betraying the warlord and has the war chief arrested. The Doctor, they haul to arrest the Doctor too, but the Resistance quickly overpowers the guards and starts a full-on revolution going on in the capital. Pretty soon, the war chief is dead, the security chief is dead, and the Doctor is faced with finding a way to bring all these people home. He can't do it himself, and the war chief apparently doesn't have a TARDIS to do it. The Sidrats aren't going to last much longer, certainly not enough to bring people home. So the Doctor reluctantly has to bring his own people, the Time Lords, now mentioned by name, into this to do this. He quickly assembles a little box using psychic power and basically mentally downloads the entire situation and a plea for help into it. And after securing the Warlord, he sends the message off and quickly tries to hurry back to the TARDIS to escape, but it's too late. After a bit of cat and mouse, the Time Lords force the TARDIS to Gallifrey, which is not mentioned by name, and begin to hold the trial for the Warlord, who is basically sentenced to having his time stream reversed. It basically becomes as if he'd never existed. The Warlord's home planet is put behind a force field, never to be seen again to the rest of the universe. The Doctor is then put on trial. Jamie and Zoe are sent home, sans their memories of everything but their first adventure with the Doctor. And after an impassioned plea that the evil in the universe must be fought, the Doctor's sentence is to exile on Earth and to have his appearance changed. The Doctor protests this, but to no avail, and he soon starts to change, and that's the end of the episode. As succinct as I possibly can get it.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty good.
That was decently shortened, yes.
I mean,
there's a lot more detail than what I said, and I cut a few things out of order.
Your summary, I'll say your summary included the war chief being killed several sentences before he finished having things to do, but it wasn't bad.
He basically just had to
was.
turn off the war stuff, and he killed the security chief before that, and he then went to the Warlord, and he was
Shot
betrayed. Or he didn't realize the Warlord knew that he had betrayed him and got his ass killed.
Apparently, in supplemental material, the war chief was regenerated by the Time Lords as the Doctor was instead of actually dying there. But that's not necessarily here nor there.
That's not canonical. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can really see kind of in this that the Warlord or the War Chief is kind of a prototype for the Master.
Very much so, even down to the beard.
My main thought, thinking of that while I watched this, was if the War Chief was a prototype for the Master, they would not have needed that machine. And that machine was a plot point in several episodes. The Master was the processing. The Master wouldn't have needed it. He would have done it.
He would need it for mass amounts of doing it, though.
Yeah, he would have needed it for mass amounts, and his hypnosis doesn't have that long-term an effect. His hypnosis is like standard hypnosis. It wears off after a few hours. And these guys apparently have been fighting for days, if not years.
Mm-hmm.
Although, another thing, while we're talking about the processing, I find it interesting that I doubt any of the writers of this episode have ever had to either format a floppy disk or to uninstall and reinstall a program. Yet they certainly got that idea down well before it would become a common idea.
Pretty much.
Yeah, this was the 70s. They were still by and large using
60s,
the old reel.
Late
yeah,
60s,
this was the late 60s, early 70s. So, yeah, at the time of writing, it was the late 60s. So, yeah, they're still using reel-to-reel computers. I don't even think the 7.5-inch floppy had been released yet.
I don't think.
Or if it had, it was in a very small circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And mind you, no personal computer ever had a 7-inch floppy. Those were frickin' huge. Those were things were like the frickin' laser discs. You remember laser discs?
I've seen laser discs and I've seen 7.5-inch floppies.
Now imagine having something the size of a laser disc to put into your computer.
I'm trying to remember what size floppies we used back when, the last floppy disks that were still floppy disks.
Those were 3 1/4.
I was going to say
3 1/4
or 2.5.
3 1/2. 3 1/2, 5 1/4, and were the three
because
sizes.
The
little hard ones.
the hard ones are referred to as 3.5 inch, and the
Yeah.
floppy ones we had at school were definitely bigger than that.
Yeah,
like
those are the 5 and
5.
quarters. Those are the 5 and quarters.
5 1/4 would be
Yeah,
right. That's,
yeah, but
okay.
the 3.5s were still considered floppy disks.
I do recall Spoonie playing around with a 7.5-inch floppy, and he's just kind of flapping it around, just like, oh, look at this thing.
7-inch, Matt. I got that wrong the first time because I was forgetting the regression because they got
I just said
progressively
7-inch.
smaller each time. 3.5 or
7.5.
3.5, 5 1/4, and then 7 even. Yeah, I've seen a 7-inch floppy in I think the technology area of the UW. They're kind of interesting.
How many bytes did it hold?
Not as much as the 3.5s or the 5 1/4s.
Right.
I think it was like the low density 5 1/4, so it was like 380 kilobytes maybe.
Well, you notice I said bytes. I didn't even add a prefix to that.
Yeah.
So this was the early days.
Yeah, this was the early days, but bytes wouldn't do much for storage. Period.
Now you can fit a terabyte on something the size of your thumb. Back then, if someone said a megabyte, you'd be like, "What?"
There is a quote from Bill Gates, who I think he says something like 512K is more than anyone will ever need for computer memory. Mind you, this was like 1982, 83, and look at us now on 8 and 16 gig computers.
Right.
And they're probably going to make an architecture revolution for motherboards soon, so we can have 32 gig memory and 64. And
Yes, bring it. I want to upgrade.
You sound like you want to be a Cyberman there, Matt.
Yes,
Upgrading is compulsory.
Yes, we've had Zombie Matt, now meet Cyber Matt.
Upgrade.
I'm sorry. Cyber Matt. Oh, dear. Oh, wow, I can pun without even knowing it.
Yep.
Bad
All
brandy,
right.
bad. No biscuit for you.
Pitiful puns and mindless mayhem, that's all I'm about. Okay, so yeah, I'll take a few minutes here to talk about Jamie and Zoe. Jamie is probably one of the most popular companions of the 1960s. He was picked up in the second or third serial.
Second.
Of Captain Troughton's
Second one.
The Highlanders, where he is from essentially 1745. During the Scottish uprising of the era.
By the way, does that clip at the end, does that actually match a clip from the Highlanders?
I don't know.
I don't know if it matches exactly with the Highlanders, but I do know that it matches quite a bit with that one bit from the Mind Robber.
I'm not sure because of the fact that I have never actually seen the Highlanders because it's a missing serial. So I have not enough data to actually. I have not even read the novelization. Okay. It is one of those that I have no data on. So I have no idea if that scene matches up, and there's not really enough audio cues to tell if that's what would have happened at the time.
Okay.
I suspect they paid it in mind where Jamie was at the time, but I cannot tell you for certain.
And I think, have you watched the end of Evil of the Daleks? Or I don't know if the end of Evil of the Daleks exists or not.
I don't know.
No, I've not watched a lot of the incomplete serials because I know they would bother the hell out of me.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, they did start to bug me after a while, so I actually gave up on some of them.
Evil of the Daleks is not. I'm sorry, I mixed her up with Victoria. Wheel in Space is her.
Yeah,
right?
Zoe is another one that's a completely missing serial.
Okay.
I wish it wasn't, but
for the most part, yeah, it's a missing serial.
So it's probably like one of the last missing serials.
Although I kind of noticed with a smirk on my face that the outfits that they had for the Wheel in Space costume were not that far removed from the costumes that were used by the Enterprise crew in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. And they did it 10 years earlier.
Right.
Suck on it, American movies in 10 years.
Although Zoe's from the same century as us, whereas the Enterprise crew are from a bit farther in the future.
Well, yes, but this was the 1960s going, the far future of the 21st century. Do we look ready to have a freaking wheel in space outside our solar system?
Year 2000.
I love how even with a hypnosis machine, Zoe can't figure out what year she was born. She was born in sometime in the 21st century.
Yeah, that's because I don't think they ever gave the date that happened. So
I think that they were afraid that they would be like, oh, I was born in the year 2010, and we would get to today and be like, really?
I don't think they were thinking that far ahead.
Yeah.
I don't think they were thinking that Doctor Who would last like it did now.
So they didn't bother with that much continuity with it.
Yeah.
They just said, 21st century, bam, there. That's all you need to know.
I know they specifically did not want to give a century that the Doctor and Susan were from, which is part of the changes they made from the pilot to the actual first episode.
Yep. They just don't want to give that particular information. And originally, part of the Doctor's concept was he was essentially a human from the future, from some Earth planet or colony. Yeah. And they decided later to make that more mysterious, which allowed them to make him an alien when they needed to change the actor.
They got rid of that by the time of the Censorites. They were really not describing Earth when Susan was talking about her home.
Doesn't mean it wouldn't have been a human colony.
True.
It didn't mean they weren't humans. It just meant that they weren't from Earth.
Right.
But they had decided to make even that more mysterious in the early days of the pre-production for the show. And that allowed them to basically go, yeah, we're going to pretty much confirm he's an alien right here when they regenerated Hartnell.
Yeah.
And then they decided, with not much longer into Troughton's era, to make sure they established that he was hundreds of years old, which I believe he said he was like 540 some.
I think it was 450 in the Power of the Daleks.
Okay. But, yeah, and pretty much, that starts setting that off, and now we get to see, his own people, the Time Lords, which are now mentioned by name. This is the first time the Time Lords are actually named by name.
Unfortunately, it's in an episode where we have warlords and a warlord, and the word Lord and Chief just gets thrown a lot around so much in this serial, it's kind of hard to keep track of sometimes.
No, it's not for me, although, yeah, my problem is the fact that all of the aliens pretty much looked alike. They all had glasses, although some of them had some weird stuff on the glasses. Yeah, that one scientist guy had, like, Vaseline or something smeared in a circle around his glasses.
Yeah, the one that was messing with the mind
So it made his eyes look really, really weird. And then the security chief had, like, some kind of lenses in the middle of his lenses, so that they would reflect weird. And I don't know what the Warlord had.
The Warlord
other than
had
really
glasses that really magnified his eyes.
And then he had really white teeth. Because I noticed he was like one of the few ones that would smile. And when the whole rest of his skin is dark, but his teeth were like pearly white. I'm like, Jesus.
Ding! Crest.
The War Chief did establish that evil Time Lords have facial hair.
I don't know. Did the monk have facial hair?
The monk wasn't evil. Just misguided.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to think about the monk.
He was like the Doctor, but not as smart.
Oh. Dude, he was giving freaking bazookas to the freaking Vikings.
Again, not as smart.
Anyway.
Yeah, I might partially be... I mean, I'm basically going off of his TARDIS data core, so that might include supplemental material as well, but basically the idea seems to just be that he was trying to get rid of the bad parts of history. So
just
kind of with the Doctor,
except
in a stupid way.
Giving bazookas to the Saxons was not a great idea, dude.
But you really look at the War Chief, and you could have really seen an early Master. You could have seen like the pre-Delgado Master if he had managed to escape.
Pretty much.
I'm pretty sure when he came
like,
back, he would have established himself as... They would have made it the same character.
Yeah, I was actually paying really close attention to see if there's any major link-up possible between him and the Master, and I really couldn't see much, but it felt like there should have been something.
Yeah, it felt like they were the same character in a way, like the same personality.
Yeah, very much.
I mean, yes, the War Chief didn't have the whole "I'm the Master and you will obey me," but it was pretty much their same mentality.
Yeah, it's like the War Chief is like the Master's thing was more, at least in the beginning, that he enjoyed the struggle as much as what he would gain from it. Whereas the War Chief wasn't quite as good on his own, but he really wanted the power.
Mm-hmm.
They could have easily written it as the same character had they not killed him.
They could have.
They had planned ahead of it for it.
I do think it turned out more interesting that they were different personally, but they could have done it if they had wanted to.
It's the second Renegade that we've seen.
Yeah.
And during the classic series, we only see 4 Renegades.
Outside the Doctor.
5 if you include what's-his-face from Shada.
Oh, I was going to say 5 if you include Barusa from the 5.
No, I'm not including him because he was part of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
He didn't leave Gallifrey. He didn't choose to go Renegade.
He did break Gallifreyan laws, though.
But he was not a Renegade.
Yeah. He didn't choose to leave Gallifrey, which is kind of what makes you a renegade. Mm-hmm. He was corrupt within the system.
Oh, I don't think you counted the Doctor either.
No, the Doctor's a main character. He's your protagonist. I'm talking renegades the Doctor has met.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 if you count Romana, who wasn't a renegade when she started, but certainly was by the end.
Mm-hmm.
Was she considered one by the end?
She chose to instead. She was recalled to Gallifrey and chose to remain behind in E-space.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty much saying "fuck you" to the Time Lords.
And then, of course, various other things had her go back.
Come back and become president.
Mm-hmm. And they couldn't have picked a better person.
But then again, if you're going to send someone to travel with the Doctor, you have to assume that they're going to pick up some disobedience habits.
You wonder, though, how Romana became president. Well, let's see. By your own election laws, the Doctor is president of the High Council of Time Lords, correct?
Yes.
By absentee, he has negated that right.
More or less.
Could you see him? Could you see her claiming to be his wife?
I was going to say, do you count those old commercials as canon? Because if so, he proposed to her on screen, and he was playing the Doctor in those commercials.
Yeah, I know.
So the Doctor proposed to Romana on screen, so you can certainly go with the wife thing.
Mm-hmm. Those commercials were made in the 80s, weren't they?
Yeah.
Like after he
late
left?
70s, early 80s.
Either after he left or right before. Well, actually, it would have had because she was only with him the season and a half toward the end.
No, she was a season. Oh yeah, season and a half.
Well,
season and 3/4, really.
Okay, I was going to say, what episode did she leave? Like, how far?
She left in Warrior's Gate.
And how many were after that? I know there was Keeper of Troughton.
There was Keeper of Troughton and Legopolis. That was it.
Okay, so she was there pretty much until the ramp up to the regeneration.
Yeah. But where were we? Okay, yeah, we're talking about the serial itself.
We're talking about Renegade Time Lords.
Yeah, we're talking about Renegade Time Lords, because you've got the Meddling Monk, the War Chief, the Master, and the Rani are the big 4.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the Professor from Shada, if you count that.
If you count that, and Romana, if you count the fact that she eventually chooses to go against the Time Lords. We see evil Time Lords, all the time, but most of them are trying to work within the system.
Yeah,
right.
There's only been, with the Doctor, there's only been 7 Time Lords that work outside the system.
So that's your group of renegade Time Lords, and this is our second example of it. Pretty much your stereotypical renegade Time Lord will be the Master, who of course continues to appear in Doctor Who, even in New Who. So he's the famous
I have to expect
one.
him to appear yet again sometime soon.
There's rumors to that effect.
Yeah,
there's rumors he'll appear this series.
Soon.
There's rumors, but we don't know how true they are.
Right.
Now, Matt had some problems with the pacing of the first few episodes of this.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
I understand that you liked the fact that they gradually were starting to figure things out, but there was just so much dragging them around the same places all the time, and redoing pretty much the same thing for like the second time was actually almost about ready to drive me crazy. But then they made their big escape, and it's like, oh, that's it. Okay, finally they're moving the plot now. Now they're really trying to move the plot. They escape the zone, come back, escape to another zone.
Yeah, there was a little bit of back and forth, but really, I didn't find it to be badly paced. I mean, the first episode pretty much ended with the Doctor looking like he got shot.
Well, yeah, I will say that the cliffhangers were at least effective. They timed them just right. And I will also say that just as I was really getting sick and tired of the same old back and forth, they finally break through that and start doing something different with the story. And it's like, okay, now we're moving. Okay.
Yeah, the issue was, of course, that the Doctor had to stagger around and get all the clues.
Start gathering clues, yes. That he could get in certain places. Start putting pieces together and figuring things out.
Yeah, because he needed to know that they he at least needed to know that something hinky was going on. He needed to find the map, and he needed to figure out, where the headquarters was. And he needed to start putting all of that.
Actually doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
To which they found the video equipment and so forth.
Yeah, that's what I meant by something hinky going on.
Hinky.
Yes, every now and then I still use an American witticism, Matt. Anyway. But no, I didn't have as much problem with the pacing, because a lot of it is the Doctor basically futzing around, stumbling around blind for a little bit. And that's kind of how he works.
It may be to the credit of them doing it too well, but the whole mind-wiping thing was also, I think, starting to get on my nerves, because felt like it was just padding the story at the time.
No, it didn't bother me, because it was part of, trying to realize that what they were doing was truly and utterly horrible.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, just after doing that for like the 5th or 6th time while they're trying to escape, it's like, ugh. We get it, they can mind wipe, they're evil, can we move on?
It didn't bother me as much, but yeah. Once you get past the 3rd episode,
yeah, by the time you're reaching the halfway point,
you pretty much don't want to put it down.
Yeah, by about the halfway point on the 3rd episode, it's like, there we go, now we're really moving, yes, keep going.
It's also very interesting to see Jamie. This is probably one of the high points of his, the point where they're leaving and they leave Jamie in charge.
In charge of the base, yes. And
he's like,
oh, I'm in charge of the base.
It's my moment to shine. Zoe didn't get as much of a moment to shine.
She's had her moments here and there before, but
she kind of had her moment to shine when leading Jamie and negotiating with the Bandito.
Mm-hmm.
That was an emergency, so I had to step away for a minute.
With the Bandito guy, you almost expected when he'd come in, you'd start hearing the Mexican hat dance.
Yeah, and also I love the fact that even the Banditos kind of questioning Jamie, like, why are you letting the woman talk? Because, well, stereotypical things back then. And Jamie's like, well, she's right when she's right, and I'll let her talk when she's right.
I just like when he comes in swaggering.
And just Zoe's face when she looked at Jamie, she's like, and I am.
And I think that's one of the things that had been going on between Jamie and Zoe, like the entire time they'd been together. Is Jamie would knock down the fact that Zoe's a frickin' genius, and Jamie, of course, being a 18th century Scotsman doesn't really get it, but would still try to act like he got it.
Yeah.
Or at least got the very, very basic concepts of it.
Because, he was the senior companion. He'd been on the TARDIS longer, so he should be in charge. Yet, Zoe was the one that knew what was going on.
She knew a lot more answers than him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even though he was the senior, he was more of the big pet guard dog.
But no,
he was the mechanical dog before the mechanical dog.
Fun to watch him coming in swaggering as the leader. Because apparently
with the belts
Zoe
across
made him.
his chet and everything, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously enjoying himself and hamming it up.
Right.
Fraser Hines is a bit of a ham, by the way. He is a huge ham. He actually had a singing career based on Doctor Who-ish songs.
Mm-hmm.
Almost as bad as Shatner. Seriously, look them up on YouTube. If you really want to basically almost scream, they are so 60s. It's like the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins in a way.
Sweet.
Only they're about Doctor Who. They're like so Beatles 60 in a way.
Oh, I forget what episode it was now. Now that you brought up the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins, there's an episode where they were watching a fantasy movie, a Mystery Science Theater, and they were mentioning the fact that Joel was bowing down before a poster of Leonard Nimoy singing the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins. And then all of a sudden he's out in the main area just making this model set. I think it must have been during one of the Gamera movies. I think the Gamera movies were starting to get to him.
Anyway.
Giant turtles aside.
Yeah, the companions actually have a chance to shine a bit, which is good because it's their swan song, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jamie had been there for 3 years, and he wasn't going to continue without Troughton. And really, Troughton and Jamie are quite a pair together.
Yeah.
Apparently, Troughton and Hines were quite a pair, too. I do remember, I've told this story before, where they might have sexually harassed one of the female companions. I don't know if it was Zoe or Victoria. But they both kind of, on the count of, like lights, camera, action, both kind of reached out and pulled her pants down in front of the camera. But this was the 60s, and you could get away with such things.
Yeah, it was not frowned down upon even by the women at that point.
No, she was giggling her brains out.
It was all in good name of practical joke, and she understood it. Whichever one of them it was.
It was them. It was both of them. Or you mean which companion?
Whichever the female companions was.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. It's a story that's told in one of my Doctor Who companions. It was like my 20th anniversary book or something. They were talking about their time together. And it was just, they would do stuff for laughs occasionally. And, there's a lot of stuff that's done for laughs on set. And you guys remember the 2009 Star Trek movie, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You ever watch the outtakes from that?
No, I have not. There's
the scene where Spock and Kirk are going into like the squid ship for the first time. They both I think they blow a line or something, but they both continue to do the scene with Spock's character doing it in an Irish accent and Kirk's character doing the scene in a German accent. And the "you may touch my monkey" German accent. And they're just, at this point, they're just like, they're both realize they blew the scene, and they're just doing it for shits and giggles. And it's like, and you could tell there's a little murmur behind if people were thinking they should cut, and someone's like, "No, keep rolling, keep rolling."
This is hilarious. Keep rolling it.
And eventually, you get to the point where the chair turns around, and there was obviously some hesitation on whether they should do it. And it's like, "Yes, turn it," and they turn it, and then you just hear Quinto go, "Fascinating," and it's just like. It was just a great point where they're just obviously just blowing off stress, because I think they'd blown the scene a couple of times.
Probably.
So it was obvious the tension was getting up, so they just do something completely stupid like that to get the tension out. That's pretty much a standard thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it might have been during a long stressful take, and they're just like, "Let's play a joke."
What was that, Bill?
Said I can't imagine that happened a lot on Kubrick sets, though.
Kubrick
I have no
sets,
idea.
I wouldn't know for sure, but yeah, Kubrick, I understand, was a little bit strict at times.
Okay,
A little bit strict, as in, like, if he was any worse than any harder on his actors, he probably would have killed one of them at some point.
Wow.
Either
real director Nazi, huh?
Either through neglect or through making people do things too many more times than they can physically take, or
For
like
perfection.
I forget. I'm trying to remember the story I recently read, but it was basically like he had gassed the actors with pesticide for the sake of the scene, like it made it look better or something.
Jesus.
And then there was what's his name, the actor from The Shining.
Jack Nicholson?
Nicholson?
Oh no, the black guy.
Oh,
I
know
don't
who you're talking
know.
about. I can't think of his name.
But like I remember it just being like that he was like that. I think it was like he made him do the scene, like the scene where he was killed, like literally dozens of times, and
Because
then it was
he
like,
just
or no, like not. I don't think I ever heard why, but it was basically just like he almost just like he was kind of old and whatever at the time, and that they just and Kubrick didn't care, and he just like keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it.
Keep tossing that black man on the floor.
it was probably because he wasn't getting the shot he wanted.
Yeah, there was something about it he didn't get, but
Yeah.
I've never seen it that elaborated in that instance what it was. Maybe Nicholson was off by a few inches when he hit him with the axe or something. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know a lot of 1920s directors used to be kind of like that too.
Yeah, it
Where
was
they would push
kind of the thing.
limits
And
quite
on
hard.
the other end of this thing, Robert Altman was kind of the opposite. He almost just put the actors down and just let them do their thing.
I know
Because I know that was the kind of the thing about the set of MASH is they actually kind of lived it.
I know some directors get their best lines by setting up the cameras and not telling the actors that they're rolling and having them think they're rehearsing.
Yeah.
That's where Nicolas Cage's best moments apparently come from.
That's supposedly that's where the realest, like, most of the good dialogue scenes from the original Star Wars trilogy came about that way.
Oh?
Although a few of the lines were simply Harrison Ford changing the script.
Just
because
ad-libbing,
that fit
like
character
the
better.
I love you, I know.
Yeah.
That was just Harrison Ford
Yeah, that was just
being Harrison Ford.
Yeah, who's
Or like
basically
they said on I Love the 70s or I Love the 80s, Harrison Ford, like a pimp, says, I know. God. Harrison Ford is one of those actors who's just, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much anymore, but he's, kind of gotten old and gray. But
He still puts out good performances, though.
yeah, he puts out a good performance. I just don't think he's good on his feet as he used to be.
Yeah.
Good, ad-libbing like that.
Oh. Anything else we wanted to talk about in this one?
Well, let's see. I mentioned the aliens looked weird, and you mentioned their voices were kind of weird. Yes, the security chief, I think, was trying to get a little bit of that SS feel going on.
A little bit, but he was trying it a little too hard, I think, at times.
Well, they might have intentionally gone too hard, because remember, these are people that look completely human, but we're supposed to see them as an alien species.
Yeah, I remember looking at the scientists going, "Wow, apparently that alien race has problems with male pattern baldness too."
Oh, that was the guy in charge of the group,
you
right?
guys couldn't. What's that? The guy that was in charge
Like
of
the scientist type one.
Yeah. What was up with those glasses, by the way?
Don't know. They just wore those glasses a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the glasses.
Not those
with, like,
glasses. The white visor things.
Yeah, the white visor things.
They were like.
They just
They were like
like
supposed to
wearing
like
them. I don't know why.
reinforce the programming or whatever. Like they were
No.
They were being used by the students
Yeah, I'm thinking
during
that
the
it was,
lecture on the processing machine.
Yeah, I think it was more of a ranking thing.
They were being warned by the students. Yeah, but
I think that there were kind of a ranking thing because those particular kind of things had like different designs depending on which one you looked at.
The security chief, the war chief, and the warlord never wore them.
No.
That's because they didn't really need them. But
yeah, I thought originally when I watched it, it was something to make you immune to the processing. It was like the sunglasses in Men in Black. But no, watching it this time, that doesn't make any sense.
Like I was seeing it as like a perception filter, but yeah, if they don't expect, well, maybe they knew in advance that they were bringing in a prisoner, and that's why they had them.
Yeah, but it would be nice if the show itself would say that.
Well, yeah, I always got the impression from when they put it on that it was pretty much intended to be a perception filter, so that anyone that had undergone the conditioning would see them as their superior or whatever.
Except that they didn't need to.
Yeah,
because they did it a lot without even needing to wear those.
Yeah, I never got what those are for. I'm wondering if the race itself was light sensitive. Because you notice when the Time Lords were basically tortured speech out of the Warlord.
It was light, yeah.
Yes.
And light beamed directly into his mind.
Right. I'm wondering if that's kind of why they needed glasses. If they were supposed to be kind of a quasi-subterranean race, so they were used to low light and dark.
Mm-hmm. Like the opposite of a sensorite.
And were nearsighted, yeah. That would almost make sense. That was because the conditioning thing had lights on it. They had that, so that was like Arctic visors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. I can understand that
and that would have been nice, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have a line in there to explain it, but that line was probably cut.
Which, again, rushing through it too hard.
Well, 10 episodes. What'd you want it to be? You wanted it to be 15?
They don't need 5 episodes just to explain one little thing.
No, but you get this little thing and that little thing and this little thing and that little thing, and suddenly you're 5 episodes bigger. So I can probably see that this script was cut. There was a few visual cuts where I suspect a scene was cut before it aired.
They probably were going to be captured by a few more groups just to show off the BBC.
No, not that. There was like a speech between the